Hello and welcome to In the Light with me, Anna Isabel. I'm an analytical hypnotherapist, and I am so happy to have Julia Hollenbery with me today, who is the author of The Healing Power of Pleasure. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you. Fun to be here with you.
So you've written this wonderful book, The Healing Power of Pleasure, which I found irresistible. And you have 7 medicines as part of this pleasure, discovery of pleasure for healing. So tell us a little bit about that.
Would you like me to go straight into the 7 medicines?
Well, if you could do that, or you could tell us a little bit more about the title, whichever you prefer.
The title originally was going to be The Universe of Deliciousness.
I love that.
And the universe of deliciousness is this subtle, sensitive, sensual, spiritual realm that exists, that mystics have known about for centuries through geography and history. And it is easily accessible for anyone and everyone. And life is meant to be enjoyed. So the book is, I hope, an inspiring and a practical guidebook to breaking through individual and cultural barriers to a more happy, sensual, and conscious life. So the 7 medicines are the pathway to move from the mess where we all begin in our own personal messiness. So I was in the middle of talking about from mess to magic, and exactly as I said the word mess, your dog started barking, and energy shivers went through me, and you paused recording for a moment. But for me, that is the perfect embodiment and expression of the mess that there is in the world right now, the unexpected, the unpredictable, the noisy, the chaotic, whatever, right? That your dog was expressing for us there. And the 7 medicines are the movement from the messiness that we find ourselves in towards the magic that we all know is possible for ourselves, the magic that we hope and wish for, the magic that we want to see in the world. And I just want to...
I was just thinking that the very first one, I think, is so important. The idea of slowing down, slow. I've been doing a lot of talking about that recently with clients. So tell me a little bit about what you mean by slow.
It's slowing down out of the very fast mental thoughts that are usually racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, back into history and ahead into the future, and very rarely present in the same tempo and location as the body. So the slowing down is becoming present to the present moment, to oneself, to the here and now. It is unifying and uniting mind and body. It's a starting place.
I think it's very important, actually, because it's also about focus, and it's about, when we talk about being in the moment, present, etc., what we're talking about is actually focusing on one thing at a time. And there's all this, heroism attached to multitasking almost.
Absolutely.
And actually, do you know what? No, let's not make that an aim. Let's instead make it the aim that we avoid multitasking where possible. Sometimes we are juggling too much, and this is where we make mistakes and have accidents, etc. And of course, get incredibly stressed. So if we can simplify things so that we are focusing on one thing at a time. That then means that we are present. We are focusing on that one thing, and that is connection. And you're talking about connection to the body and everything else.
Yeah, and sometimes the slowing down is pausing or resting or just, waiting for a moment before answering the telephone or the emails or the doorbell. It's or before getting out of the car, right, when you arrive at your destination. It's interrupting the non-stop busy, and also, as you were saying, interrupting the identity of non-stop stress.
Yeah,
which is really not productive for anybody.
No,
let alone healthy.
That's right. And what we're doing as well when we're slowing is we're soothing our nervous system.
We're beginning to, yeah.
Exactly. The minute we slow down, we are putting less pressure on our nervous system, and it makes it so much easier then to be calm. It takes a bit of practice, but we can do this. So what's the second one?
As you mentioned, the second medicine is body. And again, most of us, overstimulated, super busy lives, are concentrated in our minds. There's this morass of mental activity, and rarely do we really sense our bodies. And our bodies not only are amazing orchestrations and choreography of health, but also exquisitely sensitive places of personal experience and also personal wisdom. So coming back to the body is essential, actually, to be happy, because all the thoughts and all the stories in the mind lead nowhere. They're based on the past, whereas the body is responsive in this immediate moment to this immediate situation. And there's a wealth, a richness of information there.
Our bodies do hold memory. They hold memory of trauma, etc. But they're also very, as you say, responsive. And we only need to think about what happens when we're happy and when we're excited. We can feel our hearts beating a little bit faster, perhaps, or we feel very calm and relaxed if we think about, stroking a cat or doing something that, being in the bath, immediately we go, being in bed, there's that feeling immediately. We could feel that in our bodies. And equally, if we think about something that is very sad, we feel ourselves tensing, or perhaps if we're thinking about something that makes us anxious, we can feel it straight in our stomachs, that tension that builds in. So they are very responsive. So if we are doing things that are soothing for the body, then we respond quite quickly.
Yeah, and also to say that sometimes we are in states of being frozen when we're afraid. Sometimes we are stuck, and that's when we are separated from the wisdom of our own bodies. And that is a nervous system response. So what we're looking for is the relaxation and the soothing and the calming, not only of the nervous system, but obviously also, the tension patterns in the muscles. And we're looking to be able to be in good contact with our own bodies for our health and our happiness and our appropriate responsiveness.
You talked about being separate from the body.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
many people can't really feel their own body. Many people can't feel their own body, their own legs, their bottom on the chair, their feet on the ground. Many people are distracted by external pressures, but also distracted by trying perhaps to avoid feeling something that is uncomfortable in the history. And it is with kindness and with gentleness and with grounding and with resource that we can accompany ourselves, or with the help of a therapist of one kind or another, we can bring healing to those frozen places, to those disconnected places, and we can unify the flow of energy through the body.
Sometimes what happens to people is that they stop listening to their bodies. So they've got used to being tired. They get used to ignoring what the body is saying, which is, I need rest. They get used to all sorts of sensations, stomach acid, it becomes normal, when actually what the body is, my digestion is not coping, or, and it's often only when we become ill that we then rethink. So, or a moment of crisis where we realize, I think I can't ignore my body anymore. Exhaustion, perpetual colds, that kind of thing, being run down all the time. That's when people very often will say, well, I think I'd better listen. And then as soon as they're better, they're off again. So we need to learn. Exactly, it depends, because we need to learn, and some people do, some people go right back because all they want is to get back, because what's driving them is anxiety. They need to be doing what they believe they should be doing.
But the life and the body will always show the discrepancy. The life and the body will always bring a symptom repeatedly until somebody pays attention, or an accident in a car until somebody pays attention, or whatever it is. The life and the body are always trying to get our attention when we are off course, in order to help us, to get us to correct our behavior or attitudes. And that's soul speaking to us through the body.
That's right. And that's a very beautiful aspect of life, although sometimes a very frightening one as well. So tell us about deepening.
Depth is an invitation to humility, if you like. It is a recognition that there is so much more going on than usually meets the eye, or the ruler, or the label. We usually see only a fraction of reality, and in our human arrogance, we think we know it all. But for example, if we zoom out to look at the universe and the planets, or we zoom in to look at the insides of a cell, or even the particles within air that looks invisible, then we realize, then we get it, that actually there is so much more going on than we usually realize. And that is humbling, and that is an opening. It's an opening to going deeper. It's an opening to realizing, just as you were saying, the symptom has come many times, or the accident has come many times, like, maybe I need to listen here. Maybe there is a wisdom greater than me here. Maybe there's something else at play. So depth is, it's beautiful. It's a doorway. And in some ways, without it, it's not very easy to move into the next medicine of relationship, into connection, because when we are arrogant, we are isolated, we become like islands. I know it all, I can do it all by myself. And when we drop and deepen, we realize that we absolutely need the help of others, friends and community and family. And yeah, we realize the richness of love.
You were talking about humility, and I think that's almost a dirty word in our culture, because everything is about being powerful and empowered, and there's all, but it is an illusion to think that we are all powerful. It is a delusion that many of us happily inhabit until we are confronted with the reality of our own powerlessness in the face of illness, supernatural events, such as earthquakes, etc. And this is a very important, I think, spiritual lesson. We need to reconnect with our humility. We need to understand that there are limits. And the wonderful thing about that is that it means that we're not responsible for absolutely everything. We don't have to be responsible for the world and everything in it. There are things that are bigger than us, and there are other people that we are meant to connect with and work with. It's not just us. We're not meant to be superhuman. And when we have that realization that we're not meant to be superhuman, that there are limits to our sphere of influence, shall we say, that's a good thing, because then we can not get complacent, because we still have to be the best that we can be. But what we can do is stop doing the impossible and trust that there's somebody who can do what you can't do, what we can't do. And I think that's a very important, it's a very important deepener in terms of deepening our understanding of our place in the world. So I really like that. And through doing that, we are having to connect with others. And that brings us to the next one, which is relating, isn't it?
It's true. I'll just add a couple of things here, though, that your beautiful riff on that, and it's a relief, actually, for people to realize that they're not perfect and all powerful, and they can't make stuff happen by force will, by sheer bloody mindedness, right? There is something else at play. And there was something else I was going to say, and it's gone straight out of my head. It doesn't matter.
I know that feeling very well. So then that brings us back to relating and relating to others. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So we think of relationship usually as something that we have or we don't have. We think of it almost as an object, as the other person is an object, whereas actually we are all within a huge web of interrelationships. We are all already within many, many relationships. It can be the relationships with our family or our neighbours or our pets or the creatures in the garden or the walls of our house, and acknowledging that we are not isolated individuals, but interconnected beings in this web, in this multitude of relationships, shifts things. It softens us. I think it softens the sense of individualism and competition. Not that we become all merged and floppy and melted into each other, but it opens a chink to cooperation and collaboration, to more loving kindness, to more respect and pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's joy, isn't it? Because when we are able to connect with others, it's a beautiful thing when we have that connection. And in order to have that connection, again, we have to approach with humility. We're back to humility again, because we are understanding that this person has something to offer and I have something to offer. So it's an exchange. A connection at its best is an exchange. But if we approach with that sense of humility, where we're not wanting to turn the other person into something or making them do something, but appreciating what they have to offer, then that's a proper exchange of energy.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things, is to accept oneself and also another exactly as they are, and not to change them to make them into an object to satisfy our needs because we want something, but to play with them, to co-create something, to learn from them, to receive something, to give something. It's fun, right? Like, it's just plain fun. I mean, this kind of podcasting is great fun. I turn up, I have a chat with somebody, neither of us know what's going to happen in our conversation. Or, you know, the very simple pleasure of throwing a ball back and forwards between two people. It's surprisingly satisfying. It's a conversation.
Sensing. Tell us about sensing.
So the next medicine is pleasure. It is the medicine of sensuality and sensing, and it is what arises in the alchemy, in the satisfaction, or not actually, of any two things meeting in relationship. So the field of relationship is really rich. There's an awful lot happening between any two people at any time, or you and your dog, or again, whatever it is. So when we are focusing again on the sensate experience in our own bodies, rather than making the other into something to please us, to please our anxiety, as you put it earlier, then there is a much richer field of play. There's much more to enjoy in the to and fro in the exchange. It is literally delicious. And the more we can come into contact with how it is for me being with you right now, whoever the other is, the more deliciousness is available.
And I think too, it's also about the sharing of the world, and the joy of it, because it's, why is it that so many of us enjoy sharing a meal with a friend or cooking a meal, for others? It's because, hey, there's these great flavors and we can share them. So there's joy in sharing that physical, sensual experience. Or why is it that we might want to go to an art gallery together? It's because, if ever I've dragged my friend to an art gallery, it's usually because I've seen a painting in there. I really want them to see it. And I want them to have the joy of the color and everything that's there. So it goes, everything we do has this, because we are physical, it's enjoying that physical reality of the world, and then being able to sharing it, and that's relating. That's a beautiful thing. And it's a, if you've got if you have the pleasure of living with an animal, the joy of living with an animal, you know how lovely it is to stroke them, whether it's a dog, a cat, a bird, even, if you have a bird that's that tame, that you can hold it in your hand, as I've had the privilege of doing when I had a budgie. Oh my goodness, just the just the feeling of his little warm feet as he clung to my finger, and that very light little feathered body. So it's the delight in the world itself.
Absolutely. We live in a very sensual world full of colours and textures and sounds and fragrances, and we live in these very sensitive, sensual bodies. It's a terrible shame not to make the most of it, right? And every moment is full of potential pleasure. Every moment.
Music.
Exactly what I was about to say.
The sharing of music, it's in us as human beings. We love to come together to share music. We've been doing it for eons, it seems. And once upon a time, when people didn't have access to recordings and couldn't go to live concerts, they made music, where they were playing spoons, they were singing. And of course, going to church, in the Christian tradition, very often that's where people did hear music or could hear music. So music is a very important part of us, and we haven't even talked about smell.
Or sex.
Oh, or sex, yeah. So this is it. It's the joy of being alive.
It is
and,
the joy
and
of being
course,
alive.
because if we take joy in the actual physicality of the world that we live in all its wondrous glory, of course that's healing.
Yes.
But you also talk about empowering. So where does that fit in?
Well, it's the next medicine, as you know. Being in touch with our sensuality is empowering because it's close to our very nature. Our body is our soul body, and this sensuality is the fabric of our spirituality. And when we are being authentic, when we are aligned, we are powerful. We're personally powerful. This isn't power over others. This isn't muscle. This isn't I'm better than you. I can tell you what to do. This is appropriately wielding our personal power, whatever that is, as an artist, as a healer, as a speaker, as a plumber, as an accountant, as a teacher, all of us in our personal lives and our professional lives have what to do in this world. And our power arises from the sensuality. It arises from being true as opposed to being fake. It's the difference between puffing ourselves up. Again, if we talk about animals, when they're threatened, they puff themselves up to look bigger and intimidate their opponent. And humans tend to try and do the same thing, loud voices and stiff postures. It feels fake, it feels awkward, it has a hollow ring to it. And yet when we are really seated in ourselves, it feels good with integrity, respect and kindness for ourselves and the others. It's fun. Being empowered is really fun.
And that brings us to aliveness, because if you feel that, then you feel so alive. So tell us more.
I'm not sure if you're leading me to the last medicine. I suspect that you are, the medicine of potential, potency, aliveness, which is in a way the multidimensionality of living like this together with other people who are living like this. And then we can play and create and endlessly create. When I was writing the book, I knew what all the medicines were, but potency I really had to reach for to find it. And it's about finding balance again and again and again. We perhaps inevitably fall off balance, or we become lopsided in various ways. And so this is about finding again and again the neutral place. What's the neutral place in the meeting between you and me? What's the neutral place between day and night, and left and right, and rest and activity. And when we pay attention to this, to the people who are, if you like, sexy and more glamorous than us, or who seem more important than us, but also the people who seem less important than us, less glamorous than us, can we give equal attention to them? And as we cultivate this kind of neutrality, together with all the sensuality and all of the other medicines that we've traveled through, slow body death, relationship, pleasure, power, here we are in potency, and there is a dynamic movement of energy through us. We become conduits, if you like, for life to flow through us. Things are unexpected, and you can also trust that when it looks like things are so-called going wrong, you might be upset, or I might be upset in the moment. Actually, it's all unfolding exactly as it needs to. And that's amazingness.
So this is The Wonder of Existence, and the book that we have been talking about is called The Healing Power of Pleasure. Julia, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with me. It's been fun chatting with you. And I'm so glad that you've loved the book.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I shall be putting the title and a link to it on the description box. If people want to find you, how do they do that?
The book is sold everywhere. The books are sold. And my website, people can find me at universeofdeliciousness.com. And of course, I'm on social media. And I'd love to hear from people. Absolutely.
I love the name of your website. I think it's absolutely wonderful. So once again, the link will be on the description box. And once again, Julia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Have a great rest of your day.
And thank you all for watching. And if you do want to make a comment, ask a question, please do. I always read, I always reply, and love seeing your take on things. If you also remember that you could subscribe so that you can have access to all of the interviews that we've done. And next time we'll be talking once again to Bridget Finclair, who is the author of Red Dress, but this time we're going to be talking about her work with the Bone Circle. Until then, goodbye.